Good morning, Monday, the final day, the 30th of November, 2020. And tomorrow, the final month of 2020. Thank goodness. I'm Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington. Yeah, boy, we're all looking forward to December. We put up a Christmas tree this weekend. We put lights on our house. We usually put the lights on the house Thanksgiving weekend. We don't turn them on until Black Friday. Thanksgiving holiday has to be over. It has to be Advent or pre-Advent for us. We're kind of that way. The tree we don't usually put up until about 2 weeks before Christmas, except last year we decided to go with an artificial tree. We have bought trees from a church that does stuff. They have a gang prevention ministry, and we've always wanted to support them, but we realized every year hauling home the tree, putting it in and cleaning up the needles, and then having it dry out and maybe stain the carpet if the water spills, and then having it dry out and then having to take it out and clean up the needles. It's easier just to make a donation to the ministry and buy one tree once. We looked around for trees. We looked here in Washington, in both Yakima and Tri-Cities. We looked down in Eugene, where our son lives, and found one there, a place called Jerry's. Jerry's is like a Home Depot or Lowe's, but it's locally owned, and it's, in my opinion, superior to any of the other box stores of that type. Jerry's is great. Their service is great. Their product line's great. Go Jerry's. We didn't have to pay sales tax. Trouble is, we couldn't fit it home in our car. Fortunately, our daughter-in-law's parents were down there for that holiday as well at Thanksgiving, and they were able to haul it home for us. Yeah, that was great. So we put up our artificial tree already this weekend. After all, why not? It's not going to dry out. We're not going to completely decorate it yet, but yesterday I went ahead and put the lights on it. Little LED lights, hardly use any power. They're colored. They're not going to burn out. You don't have to replace bulbs. You don't have to buy those things that you test the bulbs with. You don't have to go through a box of different bulbs, realizing that you've got 10 different types of strings and that each bulb fits only the one string. So then you find yourself taking a bulb out of its little plastic base and seeing if it'll fit in the other one, and then finally throwing out all of those strings that just don't work and frustrate you, and buying some that really are going to be much longer lasting. So I have 5 strings of 100 lights on there, 500 lights, more than ever before, and it is beautiful. And our new dog has already taken to lying down underneath the tree when she's not looking out the window, barking at neighbors' cats. So, all of that said, it seems that we are all kind of ready for the next thing. The next thing doesn't always just come because we want the next thing to come. The next thing will come when it's ready for the next thing to come, when it happens in a timely manner. I imagine many scientists feeling pressured to work longer days, to push test data, and having to resist, having to follow very strict guidelines that were set up a long time ago about how to produce safe and effective vaccines, while then we also have a national campaign to try to increase awareness of and acceptance of the concept of vaccines. There are no vaxxers, we know that, and I understand the concept of no vaxxing because the human, as a biological entity, is strong because we're the ones who inherited the right to survive. We are the ones whose ancestors all the way down have lived. I had ancestors that went on the sidetrack, uncles, aunts, cousins, and things that did not live, did not then pass on their genetic material, and it was diseases that took them down. And so we are strong. The more we vaccinate, the less natural ability we may have to continue evolving, and the viruses don't get the chance to cull the population, which is really the job of a virus, to cull the weak and leave the strongest DNA around to reproduce. It's taking down older people who are pretty much done having kids. And from a purely natural standpoint, the virus is doing exactly what nature intended viruses to do. We as human beings, though, are social beings and have said we think that it's okay to use antibiotics to stop a death that didn't need to occur, to stop viruses from killing off hundreds of thousands or perhaps even millions of people, as they have done in the past so many times. On Thanksgiving Day, we talked about the meeting of the Wampanoag and the Plymouth Plantation and how they had developed kind of a partnership. Well, what happened to the Wampanoag? Smallpox. Where did smallpox come from? A boat from Europe brought over smallpox and probably killed off a number of colonists, but it completely wiped out the tribal presence there in New England. They had no immunity of any kind. They hadn't had exposure to the flu, the common cold, to any of the poxes that Europe had, and so they had no natural immunity. Their system didn't know what to do with it. So there we are. But is vaccinating going to be mandatory? That's the question. And if I vaccinate and you don't, are you a threat to me? Am I a threat to you? I don't know. Let's go back to the commandments, the 7th commandment. You shall not steal. Am I stealing from you if I threaten you? Like someone says, I am taking away an opportunity from you. Someone says in a boat, what if you're in a ship and there's water in your compartment and it's leaking? Well, it's your compartment. Why should I care? I'm somewhere else in the boat. And if 20% of the people have compartments that are filling up with water, is that a threat to me? Eventually, the whole boat will sink. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. There's lots of different ways of looking at the 7th commandment. You shall not steal. Okay, the obvious way is it's mine and you take it. If we didn't have theft, we wouldn't need locks on cars, on houses, on banks. Wouldn't need to lock up your bike. Supposing someone had a genuine need and you see that your bike is gone, you could say, oh, someone had a genuine need. Okay, well, I'll just take this one. And we might end up just kind of everybody sharing. I don't know. Wouldn't need insurance, at least not a lot of it. Yeah, stealing. And we often focus on the little theft, the petty theft, the breaking and entering, stealing a car, while not realizing that the people who really steal are the ones who set up systems that are unfair. Unfair, unjust economic systems that protect those who have and make it harder for those who don't have to participate are committing massive theft. They are stealing in a whole different way. It's said you have to have money to make money. So then if you use that money to lobby and create a system that reinforces your ability to have more advantage than other people, isn't that also stealing? Because again, the commandments aren't meant to be interpreted narrowly. The commandment against murder isn't against killing, it's against the intentional disregard for life. Intentional disregard for life. And this one is intentional disregard for another's place, for a world in which all need to share in order to have their daily bread. If I eat too much, am I stealing from those who hunger? It's said that some 50 million people will need extra food, supplemental food, that they cannot afford to buy during the next 2 months. And Pastor Gary mentioned it yesterday in his sermon. Boy, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I loved what he did with the Advent box, the old, the Great Karnak from Johnny Carson fame. Yeah, wonderful message too. But he really stressed that the number of people that are hungry out there and the way in which he personally feels called to give is part of the same thing. It's part of the way of honoring the commandment, the commandment not to kill is a commandment to help others live. The commandment not to steal is to help others to have enough. So it's not just about not doing something and saying, oh, I'm innocent, I can check that box. It's rather interpreted by Jesus and by really a more compassionate Christian understanding to mean don't ever stop not stealing. Be at all times ready to ask yourself, how am I living in a way that's unjust so that I have too much when others don't have enough? And I have said so many times before the story of my friend Joseph, who was a mentor to me, the man from Ghana who shared a pew with me in college on a given Sunday. It is not enough to give me food for a day. It is not enough to teach me to fish. You have to give me a place on the pond. Controlling the pond is probably the greatest way of stealing, when we don't give everyone access to the pond to fish for themselves. And then we can turn around and call them lazy or incompetent or whatever we want because they can't fish, because we haven't allowed to them. It's not their incompetence, it's our evil. Don't steal in any way harder than we can imagine, because it takes more than just one line. It takes a conversation. In fact, every one of these commandments could be a week-long conversation for a study group. What are all the ways in which we steal? See you tomorrow, and I hope I'll remember to take the computer to the church.